Hi, book nerds. Let's talk about what I read in June. The month of June was a really good reading month. I finished 10 books and 5 of them were on audio. This is the first monthly wrap-up that I've done all 2026. And even though I started doing seasonal TBRs, I am starting Herkyed 3.0 in July, so I actually started it this week. And because of that, I am going to do monthly wrap-ups so that I can update and give all of my Herkyed progress. So this will be the only reading wrap-up for an entire year that does not have any Herkyed information in it. I'm going to go from lowest to highest, and I'm happy to say that my lowest read in June was only a 3-star. So I've had 3, 4, and 5-star reads in the month of June. I think that's pretty good. There are some 3 stars that I would recommend, and there's also some 3 stars that I wouldn't really recommend. So let's talk about those. I picked up Love Galaxy by Sierra Branham. I did get this in an aardvark box. Somebody just dropped off a package. And the reason I got it was because it was blurbed as a sapphic romance set in space. I've read 2 other books that were like a love reality show, sort of like The Bachelor. And I really, really liked both of those. And so I was excited to get to this one. However, I felt that it was pretty boring. The most exciting thing that happened was at the very end. I do think that the concept of this book was really, really good. It just wasn't gripping enough to make me want to read the next book. Even though the ending of it sort of makes me want to pick up the next one just to see what's going on and what happens. Overall, I'm really trying to read books that I love, quality over quantity. And so I think that this one I'm going to unhaul and not continue in the series. However, I would recommend this book to somebody who is specifically looking for something romance sci-fi. I just think that there's a very niche community that I would actually recommend this book to. So it wasn't bad. I just didn't like it enough to continue on. The next one I'm going to talk about, I did read on audio. It is The Infinite Sadness of Small Appliances. And the reason that I picked this one up to begin with was because it reminded me of The Brave Little Toaster, which was a cartoon from the 90s that I watched over and over and over again. But I went into it very skeptical because it was a 6-hour audio and I thought, do I really want to listen to 6 hours of Brave Little Toaster? 6 hours of the appliances talking about the people who live in the house that they're in. And the first hour or so was pretty much that. But then it started to take a turn and we got more information on the time period and the setting and the things that were going on in society, and it got a little bit dark. I feel like if you are somebody who doesn't agree with everything that's going on in society right now, if you're somebody who purposely reads banned books, then I think you would really, really like this book. So even though I did rate this one a 3-star, I do highly recommend it. Then I picked up I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. So for the month of June, I did participate in the Amazing Readathon. And so a lot of these books were picked specifically because they fit prompts. And this was one of them. This is a book that's been on my shelf for a really long time. I heard somebody on a podcast recently recommend it. It is humorous. I was told that it was a humorous read. If you like Discworld, then pick this up. And they were not wrong. This is definitely a humorous read. If you like How to Train Your Dragon, you will really, really like this book. And I like How to Train Your Dragon. I don't love it. But if you like books that sort of twist the typical, then I think that you would really like this book. There's a princess. There's a boy who is a dragon exterminator, but he doesn't want to be a dragon exterminator. He actually wants to save the dragons. There's a prince who doesn't want to marry a princess. He just wants his father to get off of his back, so he's going on these adventures. Overall, this was not a bad book. It was entertaining to read, but it just wasn't gripping. Like, I did not look forward to coming home and picking this book up. So, is this a recommendation? It's a maybe for me. I do love the interior artwork, though. Next, I picked up a dystopian that I have been waiting to read, and that is Conform. And I think that going into this, I was a little bit misled, and that's not the book's fault. That's completely my fault, because when I hear the word dystopian, I immediately think of The Hunger Games and Divergent. And yes, technically, this is a dystopian, but it does not give those dystopian vibes. It is very sci-fi, very futuristic. I rated this a 3 stars. However, I do recommend it because it is the beginning of a trilogy. And there's actually going to be 3 trilogies in this world. So there is a book that's already published, and it is called Beneath, which I have heard lots and lots of people say that that book is so much better than Conform. Beneath is the first book in a prequel trilogy to Conform. And then I guess there's going to be a sequel trilogy as well. I think that after reading this book, the series as a whole is going to be amazing. This book was good. I think it would have been better if I would have went into it knowing it was going to be more sci-fi. And again, that's on me. Look at the cover. The cover says sci-fi futuristic. If I would have read the blurb closer, I would have totally got that. So this is a 3 stars, and yes, I would recommend it. One thing that this book had that I really liked, and I really think that they did it well, is a love triangle. And the reason I think that they did it well was because there is a female main character, and then there are 2 male main characters, and that makes up the love triangle. Both of the male main characters you really like. I really liked both of them. And then I would go back and forth. So I would read one chapter and I was like, well, maybe this person isn't what we are led to believe he is. And then I would read another chapter and he would redeem himself. And then I would read another chapter and the other male character, I'd be like, wait a minute, that's a little suspicious. So the whole time I was going back and forth. I think that this overall was a love triangle that was done really well. The other thing that I think was really interesting about this book is just the world building. The way that the society is structured is super unique and super interesting. And I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of this series. Then I read Emma M. Lyon Volume 3. I did listen to this one, and this was the first one that I listened to. So the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyons currently has 8 books, and I think that they're going to have 22 books or something like that. The first book is really, really short. I didn't really like the first book. I thought it was kind of boring. But because it was so short, I was like, all right, I'm going to give it another chance. Then I read Volume 2. Absolutely loved Volume 2. Volume 2 is my favorite one so far. Volume 3 was just in the middle for me. I felt that the romance or the possible romance in this book was less, and it was more focused on other aspects of Emma M. Lyon's life, which is totally okay. I don't know if it was that or if it was because I listened to it instead of reading it that sort of maybe lowered the rating for me a little bit. I did rate it a 3. I do recommend the series as a whole so far. I mean, I've only read 3 volumes of it, so who knows what could happen. But yes, I do recommend that if you have heard of this and you are curious about it, definitely pick it up. This is about a woman in England in, I don't even know, 1700s, 1800s, I don't even know. And what she is going through in her life, the people that she's meeting, the problems that she is encountering. She is super witty. And all of the entire book is her diary entries. So it's really, really interesting. It's a really fresh take on the genre, and I really recommend it. Then I read another book that's been on my TBR for a really, really, really long time. And that's One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. The magic system in this is based on tarot cards, and I think that that's really unique. The dark gothic vibes are so strong. This cover right here, this is the feeling you get the entire time that you're reading this book. I did rate this book a 4 stars. I think that I read it pretty quickly. I did read it on Kindle instead of my physical book because I was reading it while I was at Disney World. I think that this was a really strong read for my first read by Rachel Gillick. She also wrote The Night and the Moth, which I have on my TBR and I've heard really good things about. And I do hope to get to Two Twisted Towers, which is the sequel to this, sometime in July. Something I really like about this book is that it's a duology, and that's very comforting. It doesn't feel overwhelming when you start a series that's only a duology. Also, the romance in this book is very subtle. It's not the main focus of the book, but I kind of wish that it was. I really liked Elspeth and Raven. So overall, 4 stars, would definitely recommend. The next book I listened to on audio from Libby, and that is Abby Jimenez's Say You'll Remember Me. So far, I've loved everything that I have read by Abby Jimenez. This one is no exception. I gave it a 4 stars. If you watched my mid-year freakout tag, you will know that Xavier, the grumpy veterinarian in this series or in this book, I listed as one of my new fictional crushes. I mean, a grumpy veterinarian, come on. I did only rate this one a 4 star because of one reason. I loved the couple. I loved their interactions. I loved their banter. I loved everything about them. But up until about the 70% mark, it was just kind of their story. Like, nothing high stakes was really happening. But then after about 70%, stuff started happening. The ball started rolling. We got to see how they showed up for each other in really, really important ways. There was a very, very side character who was introduced later on, and the development over that character and how he was tied to Xavier's past just got me right in the feels. Overall, this book is a 4 stars, and yes, I definitely recommend it. The next chunky book I read was Eye of the Bedlam Bride, which is book 6 in Matt Dinniman's Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is the first Dungeon Crawler Carl book that I listened to 100% on audio. So before this, I either read the book completely with my eyeballs, or I went back and forth and I would read it when I was at home and listen to it when I was in the car. This one is, like I said, the one that I completely listened to, and I think that that was a mistake. You can see there's a lot of freaking information in this book, a lot of things to retain, and I think that I didn't retain it as much because I listened to it, and it was such a long read. Definitely recommend it. I did give this one a 4 stars. That may have been affected by my reading it with my ears instead of reading it with my eyes. But definitely recommend this book. If you don't know anything about Dungeon Crawler Carl, I don't know what rock you have been living in, but this is a lit RPG about a man named Carl and his cat Princess Donut, and they are in a televised dungeon crawl that is being televised to the rest of the galaxy. Highly recommend it. Super interesting, super unique, and I love this series so much. Okay, 2 more books. The next one I listened to on audio, and I gave it a 4 stars, and it is We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. This could have been a 4-star read for me, except for that I have read a lot of TJ Klune books, and I had to actually stop 50% of the way through this book because it was so dark and so depressing. Definitely not anything that he's ever written before. So I did put it down. I talked to a bunch of people about my feelings about it. I got a lot of encouragement that I just need to finish because it's worth it. And so I did. And I'm so glad that I did. The last half of the book was so good, so important, so emotional, so heartfelt. There were really, really important discussions over family, about being gay, just things that were so well written, so well talked about. And I'm a little bit upset that the first half of the book was so dark and depressing that it did bring my rating down. Do I recommend this book even though I gave it a 4 stars? Maybe. Just go into it knowing that the first half of it is a lot different than the last half of it. And that brings me to my last book, which is my only 5-star of the month. And when I tell you I don't cry at books, it is really, really hard for me to cry at a book. I might get a little bit emotional. I never cry when anybody dies. Most of the time when I get emotional over books, it's because it's the epilogue and it's sort of tying up everything, and we're kind of learning what happened to all the characters at the end, and I sort of get that end credit music playing in my head, and that makes me a little bit emotional. This book, when I say that I sobbed and I was making weird noises and I had snot coming out of my nose and I did not know what was happening to myself. Into the Blue by Emma Brody. This is a contemporary romance, but it has a lot of themes about grief. One of the things that really gets me in my feels is when there's two people who just love each other so much and they can't be together. For some reason, that just really, really makes me emotional. And that is what this entire book is about. And the reason that they couldn't be together is actually a really, really good reason. It's a strong reason. It's not something stupid. About 100 pages into this book, I knew that it was going to be emotional, but at the end of the book, I just could not even believe how much I was crying. One thing I really liked about this book is that it is sort of centered around nerd culture. So there is a lot of settings and a lot of instances where they go to cons, like Comic-Con or like nerdy cons. They dress up, they do cosplays. And I just loved seeing the characters be them true selves and not worry about what other people think of them. Highly recommend Into the Blue. The package that came is for me. Let's see what it is. Probably not anything book related because I did a little bit of a TikTok shop haul while I was in bed the other night. Okay, so I got some cool press-on nails, which if you wear press-on nails, this is the best company. These never fall off of my fingers. And I got some mop heads because, you know, adulting. I do have a shirt coming, though, that says Book Nerd on it. I kind of wish that this was in that package, but alas, it was not. Anyways, I think that this was a pretty good stack. This plus all of the other ones that I read on audio. Pretty good June. Hope July is just as good. Don't forget that my next reading wrap-up, the one that will be in probably the beginning of August for what I read in July, will also be my very first Herkyed update. So I'm really excited about that. And as always, I appreciate your likes and your comments and your subscribes. And until next time, happy reading.